Hello, hello. Today we are going to learn about extended constructed responses. Before we get to the extended responses, real quick, what do you already know about the short constructed responses? Hopefully, some things that you know about it are that it has a 0 to 2 rubric, that it requires 2 to 3 sentences to answer. To get those 2 points, you need to have a correct answer, good text evidence, you got to use quotation marks, and you got to type in complete sentences. So the extended constructed response is the essay. And while it is similar to the short constructed response, it is kind of a whole different ballgame. It's a bit more involved because it is checking not only did you understand what you just read, but also do you know how to organize your thoughts into a standard essay. So some of the basics. This is a longer piece. It's going to be at least 8 sentences long, maybe a little longer. It's going to have multiple paragraphs with transitions. There's going to be more text evidence. You need at least 2 quotes in one of these, maybe more. You're going to be using essay format. So there's a controlling idea, there's body paragraphs, there's a conclusion, and the grammar and spelling is more important on the essay. So the short constructed and the extended constructed can sound very similar, but they have some meaningful differences between them. A couple times now I've used the term standard essay format. What do I mean by standard essay format? Well, here's a standard essay. Some things to notice. First, there are clear paragraphs here. There are 4 paragraphs, and you can tell they're paragraphs because each one is indented. That tab key on the keyboard pushes the first line of each paragraph in, so it's really easy to see where the new paragraphs start. There are transitions between the different ideas. Things like, for example, additionally, and as you can see, are transition words and phrases that help move the reader between ideas. There's a controlling idea, so a big idea that the whole essay is about that we generally put in the introduction. And then there are supporting details or evidence in the body paragraphs. So this is the rubric for the extended constructed response. It's a little more complicated than the short one because it's 5 points. 3 of those points come from the contents, the organization of your essay. As a point for having a correct answer, a point for having at least 2 pieces of text evidence with a little explanation, and a point for there being transitions and paragraphs for using essay format. The other 2 points come from spelling and grammar. And while they aren't crazy strict about the spelling and grammar, you can get 2 points if it's really good, 1 point if there are a lot of mistakes, and you can get 0 points if there are like a lot of mistakes on it. But you add these together, 3 points for content, 2 points for grammar, and that will get you your final score. So one way that we can remember all the pieces that we need for these extended constructed responses is writing with ACEs. So in ACEs, you start by answering the prompt. Sometimes you'll see this as races, so you restate and answer the prompt. And then you cite evidence, so you're giving your quotes and explaining them. You do that twice. And then you summarize your answer at the bottom. I like to think of this as an essay sandwich, right? So you start with your answer. Up here at the top is your bread, and then you have bread on the bottom. So you have your answer again. So you have an answer in your introduction, and you restate the answer in your conclusion. And then all the good stuff in the middle is your transitions, your text evidence, and your explanations. And you want to double that up. You want it to be a really tasty essay sandwich. This is what a prompt looks like for an extended constructed response. Yes, it is very long, and most of this information you can ignore. So it'll start by telling you what you're reading. So read The Telltale Heart. Based on the information in the text, write a response to the following. Then it actually gives you the prompt. Explain why the narrator believes they aren't mad. That's what you have to do. It'll then tell you what kind of writing you're doing. So it'll tell you that you're writing an informational composition and that you should use evidence from the text. All this down here is just some extra information, some reminders, right? So clearly state, organize your writing, develop your ideas, all these reminders. The important thing is that this is the task and that this is a reminder that you're writing an essay and to use text evidence. So let's look at what one of these essays might look like. So we're going to use that same prompt. Why does the narrator believe they aren't mad in Telltale Heart? And we're going to create this essay. The first thing I have to do is answer this prompt, or restate and answer the prompt. So I need to write an introduction that has an answer. The Telltale Heart is a classic story about a man who goes mad and kills his neighbor, buries his body under the floor of the house, and confesses to the police. Throughout the story, though, the narrator insists he isn't mad because he was able to tell the story calmly. This underlined sentence here is my actual answer, right? This is why the narrator thinks they aren't mad, because they can tell the story calmly. All right, so I've done my answer. Now I need to cite evidence. For example, in paragraph 1, the narrator says, quote, "How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story." Quote, "He believes that he is healthy, not mad, because his retelling of events is so calm." So here I have given you a quote, and I have explained how that quote proves my answer. Now you'll notice you have to do this twice. We want it to be a good essay sandwich, right? So let's do this one more time. One more quote that will help us. Additionally, the narrator once again tries to convince the reader that he is sane in paragraph 12. He says, "If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body." Quote. Again, he insists that because he can retell these terrible events in a calm way, he isn't crazy. So again, here I've just given another piece of text evidence and kind of explained how it proves my answer. All right, last thing I got to do is I got to do the bottom bread on my sandwich. I got to summarize my answer. In conclusion, despite the insanity of his actions, the narrator believes that they haven't gone mad because they don't think they sound mad. So if we look at the rubric here, we can see that this hits all the things we needed to hit. There's a clear, correct answer here in the introduction, and we summarize that answer at the bottom. There are two pieces of text evidence. We've used quotation marks, and we've even explained how they support the answer. And then the essay format is there. There are clear paragraphs with indents. There are transitions being used, for example, additionally. So this hits all the things that we need in this essay. Let's look at one more essay. Here's a different essay for the same prompt. Let's read it all the way through, and then we're going to check if it has the things we need. The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe is all about a crazy narrator committing murder. He thinks he isn't crazy because he says what looks like madness is only his hearing being very good. For example, in paragraph 1, the narrator says, "The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute." Quote, he insists that what other people are saying is madness is just his hearing being sharp. Also, paragraph 10 says, quote, Now have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses," quote. He is trying to tell the reader that what we think is insanity is just his hearing being really good. As you can see, the narrator doesn't think he's crazy. He just thinks his hearing is really good. All right, a little repetitive there at the end, but let's see how it does on the rubric. So, is there a clear answer to the question? I would say yes. Here in the introduction, he says that he thinks he isn't crazy because his hearing is just really good. And then it says that again in our conclusion. Are there two pieces of text evidence with quotes? There are, right? Right here, we have the quotations and what paragraph it's from. And right here, we have the quotations and what paragraph it's from. Are there paragraphs that are indented? Yes. It's very clear to see where the paragraphs start because we are using indents for each of the paragraphs. Are there transitions? Yes. For example, also, and as you can see, are all transition phrases that help move the reader between the different paragraphs. So let's do a little self-check. How many of these do you know the answer to? How many points are there on the ECR rubric? There's 5, 3 for content and 2 for spelling and grammar. How many sentences should the entire extended constructed response essay be? At least 8. It might be more than that, but 8's probably the minimum. What does ACES stand for to remember the parts of an ECR? So the A is to answer the question, the CE is to cite evidence, and then the S is to summarize your answer. How many pieces of text evidence do you need for an extended constructed response? At least 2. You could do more, but for these essays, you need at least 2 quotes. How do you show that something is text evidence? Well, you should put quotation marks around it and say what paragraph it is from. What are some features of a standard essay? So for a standard essay, we're talking about paragraphs with indentions, we're talking about transitions, talking about an introduction paragraph, body paragraphs, conclusion paragraph. And the spelling and grammar count on the extended constructive response.